Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to our art class. And as you can tell, things are going to look a little bit different this week. I did a little bit of a different setup, and we're actually going to be doing this class. This is going to be a pre-recorded class, and this is going to be a great opportunity for us to experiment with this. As you guys know, with all the uncertainties that we're facing with COVID, we really have no idea when we're going to go back to having programs, certainly group programs. So we're going to invest a little bit more in trying to bring back some of our programming in a digital format. And since I've been doing the art program with you guys, I thought this would be a great opportunity for us to experiment with this format and get some feedback from you guys. So the class will be exactly the same way as it was. I'm going to explain what we're doing, we're going to do the demos, and I'll give you guys a chance to do it. The only difference is it won't be on Microsoft Teams or live stream necessarily. So after this, you guys can please let me know what worked, what didn't, what challenges you had at home, and how we can improve this. Our goal is to expand on this format and to be able to do a wider variety of programs that you guys will be able to access at your own convenience. So with that being said, let's get started. So for this week, we're going to just continue along with what the exercise that we were doing last week. We were exploring leaves and fall colors. So we did this painting here that we did not get to finish, where we drew different leaves and tried to do some blending inside the shape. So, so our goal for this week will be to do the drawing and fill in all of the background. So opposite of what we did the previous week, where we filled in the shapes, this week we just want to finish the backgrounds. And what we're really going to be focusing on a lot today will be brush technique and getting into these nice little corners and edges and nooks and crannies and staying clean and detailed. Okay, so for our supplies and setup, it's going to be pretty much the exact same thing we've been using. Our primary colors, our paints, I have them right here. Our brushes as well. We only probably need to use 2 brushes. I would say select a smaller brush and then a more medium brush. So this could be for doing the leaves and the detail, and something like this could be for the backgrounds. Also, we need our water, and then our palettes / plates, pencil for drawing. I'm going to use a Sharpie so you guys can see better. And I always have a little bit of a rag or a paper towel to wipe my brush on. And that's it, that's all we need. Let's get to our paper. So our page setup, as you can see, is in landscape mode. So landscape mode is when it's longer on the horizontal, and this is portrait mode. So just for future reference, this is portrait mode, landscape mode. Today we're going to be doing it in landscape mode. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is we're going to create a grid. So what I'm going to do is you can use a ruler, or you can just use a brush or a pencil like I showed you guys in the past how to kind of measure the sides. So we'll start at the top. So I'm going to just eyeball about 1/3 of the way across the top. Let's make that little mark right there. And then I'll use this is not a ruler, it's just a piece of metal that's a straight edge, but I can use that. I just line it up to where that mark is, and then right where the end of my page is, where that tape meets, I'm just going to grab that and bring that right to the bottom, and it gives me an approximate sort of measurement, which is good enough for what I want. And then I'm just going to go ahead and connect that line. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing across and vertically. So you can work at your own pace right now, or you can just follow along with me. So I'll add the next one. So we're going to start now, come across from this side, I'll come across from the right side, I'll make my mark, and then I will do the same thing, use my my straight edge as a ruler, measure, make the mark, and then connect the line. Okay, so we have our 2 vertical lines, and now we're going to do our horizontal line. So same thing, it's, for me, it's not as important that this line is exactly in the center of the page. It's more important that this line is straight. So once again, I can eyeball the middle, but I'm just going to use my little straight edge here to make sure that it's even. Therefore my line is going to be straight and it won't be crooked. So voila, we have our shapes. So now that we have our grid, we can just start drawing our leaves. So we have a few different samples to pick one. We did our exercise last week. We have some new samples here. So we can just go ahead and pick a few different leaves and just kind of go with it. So if you guys want to do your own leaf, you can also create your own leaf. Just make sure the shapes are different, and we'll do the colors the same together. So I'm gonna start, why don't I start with this one? This looks like a fun, easy one to draw. So we're gonna start drawing this leaf right up here with the squiggly lines. So we're gonna draw this leaf in this square right here. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off with the stem. I'm gonna go to the bottom right corner right there. I'm gonna make a little mark, and I can just go ahead and just kind of draw the stem right there. I know what that's gonna look like. And now I'm gonna go up to the left. I'm gonna come across, and this one, I picked this one first because it's a little bit easier. It's just kind of a fun shape. We're just literally making a squiggly line, 3 kind of sections on each side, 3 kind of lumps on each side, and that's it. Very basic shape. And once we're done, I'm gonna just go ahead and just draw some of these veins, arteries inside the leaf. We got our first leaf. Okay, we got leaf 1. Let's jump to leaf 2. Which one do we like? Now we'll stick to this page. I'll pick a few from here. I like this one. It's a nice triple leaf one. We haven't done the triple leaf yet. Still fairly simple, so it's a good one for us to get started with. So for this one, we're going to start on the opposite side that we just did. So instead of starting at the bottom right, we're going to start at the top left. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go ahead, start in that corner, and just start to draw a line slightly curved that comes out about 2-3 inches. Now in this line is going to lead to my kind of middle leaf, and then the 2 side leaves will be there. So I'll go ahead, since I have my line, I'm going to actually position where I want my leaf to end. So I have my line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up from the bottom right again. I'm going to make a little mark, and I know that's going to be the tip of my leaf. And then once I have this point and I know it goes up to there, I'm just going to create a nice curved shape, one side, the other side. So it's kind of like, looks a little bit like a squished heart. So we'll do the same thing on this side, come out a little bit, curve the line, kind of make like a little bit of a half arc, and then come out. And same thing on this side, we'll have the stem come out at the same point, and we'll just go ahead and make this leaf. So I got a little squished, but that's okay. So there we go, our 3 leaves. Okay, so 2 down, 4 more to go. So for this one, let's jump back to this page. I like this leaf up here. The shape is a little bit different. It has the spiky edges, and it's still not as complicated as some of these. So we'll jump to this leaf next. So for this leaf, what we're going to do is we're going to start again at the bottom right corner. So we'll go ahead and just kind of make a little bit of a stem there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start on the left side. We're going to come out from that stem, and we're just going to kind of create these little spikes. Little spikes go up, and we want to end once again in the top corner. So we're going to end right there, and then we're going to do the same thing from this side. Come out from the bottom, make these little spikes along the way, and there we go. We have the shape, and now we can just very quickly fill it in with some stems and veins inside the leaf, and we have our 3rd leaf. So we have 3 leaves left. So I'm going to pick 2 of these 3, and then maybe one simpler one. So let's just go ahead and we'll jump to this one. This was one of the harder ones. It kind of looks like a maple leaf. Let's go for it. Let's do it. So for this leaf, we're going to start in the bottom corner again. I'm going to create that stem, slightly curved once again. And now we're going to actually come out and down with a little bit of a curve. We'll do the same thing on this side. So we just kind of came down and up with our curves. And now we're going to do a spike, one more spike, and then a third spike, and then we're going to do a big kind of twirl right there. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So spike, spike, and then we're going to do a loop. So that kind of should meet up and around the same portion. And then we're going to come out, do one more spike, and then our big middle one, and then one more spike. And it looks a little different, but once again, it's nature. Nature always looks different. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not what we're going for. So that's our fourth leaf. For our fifth leaf, we're going to do a multi kind of leaf branch. So we did this one last week. So we're going to start at the bottom left again. We're going to do a big swirly line, kind of a big curved line that goes almost to the top right corner. And then throughout this, we're just going to add little leaves, one to one side, one on the other side, one on one side, one on the other side. So as you do this, you can just become more relaxed, more free, gestural. You can give the leaves a slightly different shape, make them more pointy. You can curve them so you can add a little bit of personality to your drawing. There we go. I'm done mine, and that's it. So now that we did 5 leaves, we'll just do a kind of a more simple one for the last one. And we'll do a very simple heart-shaped leaf. We'll start at the top, right, left this time. Create a little branch, and very simply we're going to come down and out. You're almost drawing a heart or spade. Okay, and that's it. And then we're going to create those lines once again. Remember, you can always be creative and design your lines your own way, the veins. But there we go. We got our 6 leaves. Let's start painting. Okay, so we have our drawing done, and now we're ready to paint. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and just paint the backgrounds of each of these. So we can actually mimic some of the colors we have up here. We can do some light blue for some of the leaves, and then some yellowish or greenish backgrounds for the rest. So the only thing we should keep in mind is if we're going to paint our leaf green, then we should make sure that the background is blue. Otherwise, green and blue works perfectly with the colors that we're going to use, which are going to be yellow, orange, and some red and purple. Okay, so let's get started with painting. Okay, so now we're ready to paint. So the first color we're going to start with is going to be light blue. So I'm going to need my white. I'm going to take some of that and just pour a little bit right there. And I'm also going to need my blue. And now we're going to take our brush and we're going to mix together a light blue. So once again, remember that we always want to start with the lighter color. So in this case, that is obviously the white. So I'm going to add the blue to the white a little bit at a time. And this way I can really control the color that I get. If I add too much blue, it's very difficult to go back and get it lighter. So I always start little, you saw how little I added right there, a tiny little dab of blue at a time, and start mixing that in. So right now I can see that blue, it's a nice sky blue, but I want it to be a little bit darker than that. So a little bit at a time. You can see small dabs. And now it's starting to get there. Just mix in all that white. and maybe a little bit more. Another dab. And remember, when you're mixing, try to get all the paint. You can always scoop around the edges with your brush and bring it back into the middle and try to get all that paint mixed. Okay, so that's the color. I'm happy with it. Let's start painting. So now we're going to paint 3 of those backgrounds in a light blue. So I'll start with the first one. We'll start with the top middle one. And once again, remember, when we are using our paint, we don't want to put too much paint on our brush. We don't want to scoop up too much paint. We want to use a little bit of paint, and we want to keep most of the paint on the tip of our brush. And that way, once again, we can control the amount of paint and how we apply it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by doing the edges first, and then I can fill in the rest of it. So I'm going to start at the edge of this leaf right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to take my brush and press very gently, and very gently I'm just going to press my brush and just follow that line. And I'm actually going to move my hand as I go. You're going to see I'm going to move my hand slowly across the page and just doing little dabs and just kind of following that line. Remember, you don't want to press too hard. You also don't want to press too soft. So it's just a matter of doing it and just getting a feel for the brush. And when I get to these tight little edges, I can actually use my brush on an angle, and I can just come in and just press it very gently, move it very gently. It's really about just how much pressure you apply. It really lets you control your brush and control that paint. So I got my first leaf, jump to the next one, and once again, small dabs. Now there's lots of little different ways to paint, different techniques for holding your brush. The best thing is always do what feels comfortable, and use your practice, and whatever you feel that gets you the best results, that's what you want to go with. So it's good that we picked this one first because it's a little bit challenging, and this is going to be a good warm-up for the rest of our painting. Just getting into these tight little corners and just practicing staying inside the lines. So let's go the third leaf. Against the tape, I can just go right over that tape, because once I pull it off, it's going to give me a nice clean line. And then, oh, forgot to finish this. Just going to do this edge. Also, try not to leave any like big lumps or streaks in your paint. So if you see some, just before it dries up, just go right over it with your brush. See, notice how sometimes I also flip the brush, because when I start to run out of paint, there's some more paint on the other side. Okay, almost done, the blue. Oh, missed a little spot right here. Okay, so my first background is done. So we just finished painting our first background color, and I want to change up the background blue a little bit for the next one. So I just want to make it a little bit darker. Now I have some blue already that we just used, so what I could do is I could just take that color and just add another dab of blue to it. And I just want to make it a noticeable amount darker or more blue. So that looks fairly decent, so that's good. Also, if you're out of that color and you used it all up, you can just do the same process that we did with the first blue. Take some of your white and a little bit of blue at a time until you get that desired color that you want. So I'm going to take a little bit more. And just keep adding until you get it a little bit darker. There we go. So now we have our second color and we're ready to paint our second shape. Now I'm going to jump to the bottom left shape and we're going to paint that background in this blue. I'm going to put a tiny dab here just to see next to the previous color that we did if it does look a little bit darker, and it does not, so I'm actually going to add some more blue now. And sometimes it's hard to see how colors kind of look if there's white space in between them, so it's always good if you want to see how your color looks next to the previous one, put a little bit dab right next to it. So that's good. So now that I'm good with my color, I'm going to go ahead and just start painting around this leaf. So same thing that we did last time. What I want to do is I want to pick a starting point, just come and slowly press the edge of my brush along that line and just slowly move my hand and my brush, and then once I get to that edge I'm going to lift it up and just do little dabs around here, and the same thing down here. You can also move your brush in that direction as well. So the key is you always go with the flow of your bristles. You control the amount of pressure that you add, and you always make sure you always have the right amount of paint. Now all paints are a little bit different, so depending on where you get your paints and the quality of the paints, they will mix a little bit differently and apply a little bit differently. So that's really, when you're painting, that's really the trick, is just getting a feel for that paint, getting a feel for your brush. Same thing with a brush. Paint brushes are all a little different, so you just gotta practice and just get a feel for it. And once you have that and you figure out a few fundamental skills, you can basically paint anything. So as we're going, and as I'm finishing painting these edges, I'm just gonna fill in some of these spaces. Okay. Now for the third shape, I'm just going to take that same blue, and once again I'm going to go a shade darker. So this one's almost done, so I'm going to mix a new batch. I already have a light blue here. So what I want to do, once again, just keep adding blue to that color. And that is starting to look a little bit different. Let's test it out. I'm going to put it right there. Put it right there. It looks good to me. So let's go right ahead and paint this shape. So luckily we picked a nice easy one for the last one. So this one should be a little bit quicker. There are no sharp edges, so you can just go right along. We'll fill in all the edges first and then fill in the rest of it. It's the fun part. So once we're done this, we're gonna jump to our green and do the same thing for the rest of the backgrounds. You can see when my brush starts doing that, that means I'm running out of paint, so let's just add a little bit more paint, and then once again I'm just doing gentle dabs, just coming around. Okay, so our blue background is now done. For this I'm gonna need white, blue, and of course yellow. So we'll just add some yellow there. And what we're gonna do is essentially the same way of mixing, except this time we're gonna start with a green and then add a little bit of white to it. So what I'll do is I'm gonna mix right into this yellow because I need a lot. I'm gonna just keep adding to it. So I'm gonna take a very, very tiny dab of blue. So remember, the darker the color is, the stronger it is when it comes to mixing. So a color like yellow needs only a very little blue to make a difference. And you're gonna see as I mix it, you can see that green already appearing. And I have just mixed a nice lime green. But I want it, no, actually that's not too bad. Maybe a tiny bit more, very little. And now I'm going to add the white. So the reason we add the white is that without the white the colors will be somewhat transparent. And just adding a little bit of white to the color makes it more opaque. So when we paint it, it's less streaky and we don't have to go over it twice. So I actually really like that color. And that's going to be the one I'm going to use for my first shape. So we're going to start with the top left shape right here. And exact same thing. Oh, I like that color. Exact same thing. We'll start with our around the shape, and once again I'm pressing just gently and just moving my hand with the brush. I kind of went over there a little bit, but that's fine. We're going to paint in that shape later. And this is looking good. So I'm done this half. I'll just go ahead and just fill in the rest of this background. If you want the background color to be a little bit more solid, you can do a second coat. But for what we're doing, this is fine. I'm happy with it. So just keep going. Corners are always very, very tricky. What I do is I come from one side, press across, and before I get to that edge, I lift my brush. Also, we can go over these edges with black at the very end, so we don't need to worry too much at this point because we can cover that right up. And remember, you can always flip and rotate the angle of which you're holding the brush compared to where you're painting. So sometimes if I'm getting in these tight corners, I'll just switch how I hold the brush. There we go. So that's done, and we can move on to the next shape. So what we're going to do for the next shape is we're just going to take this green and add a tiny bit of blue to it. And you can see how strong that blue is. And that looks a little bit darker, so why don't I just add a tiny bit more? And that should be good, and we can move on to our next shape. So we're going to jump to the top right corner now, and this one has a lot of spikes, so we'll take our time. Once again, I'd like to bring the tip of the brush to the edge there, and then once I have that corner, reverse the flow. You can even shift, like I said, how you're holding it, so as you're coming down, the tip of your brush is pointing away, and then once you get to these corners, you just gotta feel the edges. I have this side done, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just fill in. That half, and then we can move to the other half. Okay, and we're done our second shape. So as you can see, the background is not very opaque. You can see some of those paint streaks. So like I said, if you want to go over that and you want it flat, kind of similar to how the blue is, we could do a second coat. I think for this exercise, we're fine with that. We'll leave it. But what we can do is for the last shape, maybe just add a little bit more white to the paint, and that will make it a little bit more opaque. So let's just go ahead and mix that next color. We have our big blob of green still. So now I'm going to take a slightly bigger, bit of blue, and mix that in there. I want this one to be a little bit more on the green side. Those two look a little more yellow. So there we go, that's good. And then we're going to add just a little bit more white now, just to help give us that opacity. And we're good. So I'm just going to quickly wash my brush. So we have a few options here. What we could do is we could paint the entire background in this green and then wait for that paint to dry and paint the leaves on top. But for the purpose of this exercise, we actually are trying to get more practice. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm actually going to switch up my brush. I'm going to get the smaller brush, because that one is going to be a little hard to get into all these little nooks and crannies with that bigger brush. So I just switched it up. So whatever small brush you have, you can use that, and it's essentially the same concept. The key here is really just patience, just taking your time and just trying to do it right, and just not rushing it and not trying to get through it as fast as possible, which I know is sometimes the tendency. But just try to take your time, go slow, feel the paint, feel how it works on your brush and how it applies, feel how much paint you need at a time. And once you get the hang of it, you can move a lot faster. but at the beginning, take your time. So I'm just going in these edges here. I'm just doing one little section at a time. And I'm just going to fill in that whole little section as I go. Not a ton of empty space down here, so I can just fill it in as I go. So once again, I'm doing little dabs. The amount of pressure that I'm applying is really the key. And I'm trying not to use too much paint at a time, not form any bubbles or any blobs of paint. And just go. So we saved this one for the last because obviously it's the most challenging, and sometimes it's good to warm up to it, but this could be where maybe we lose our patience. So just make sure we try our hardest to stay focused. Focus on the painting and take your time really. So I have one side done, and now I'm just gonna finish off the top corner here. Alright. Once again, those corners are always tricky. So let's just work our way down now. So I'm just gonna fill in around here. I'll fill all that in with the small brush, and then I can just switch to the big one and just quickly fill that in. So the tendency is, as you work, you start to rush a little bit more, and as you rush you start to get a little bit messier. So if you catch yourself kind of losing some of that brush control, just slow down, take your time. Remember, art is not a race, and a lot of the times it's supposed to, the process, it's really about the process, right? The end result is great. It's great. It feels really good to accomplish something, to finish a work of art, to finish a painting, to get that sense of gratification from that. But the process is really what it's all about. And it's about just kind of zoning out and focusing on something different and giving your mind something to do. Okay, so I finished the shape. I'm just gonna do these edges quickly. And then I'll bring in a bigger brush just to clean up some of that, some of those marks there. Okay, so I'm pretty much done. I'm just gonna touch this up a little bit. Okay, and now we are done the background. We're done for this week. We're gonna continue off with this painting next week, where we're gonna fill in the shapes and we're gonna do blending inside of each of these leaves. So I hope you all enjoyed that, and we'll see you all next week. Take care for now and have a great day.